So without any further ado, we'll chant Jaya Radha. Do we have somebody playing around? Great. Dwarkadish Prabhu, he's so talented. He's one of these devotees that can do anything. Prabhupada, one of the characteristics, 26 characteristics of a pure devotee is that he's expert. And expert, means what? It just says he's expert. Well, he can play the mridanga, he can lead kirtan, he's got a beautiful voice, he can cook, he serves the deities beautifully. Prabhupada said 3 things brahmanas should learn: how to cook, how to lead kirtan, and how to give class. Those are the brahmanas, because then you can go anywhere and start Krishna consciousness. And of course he's got an education in IT, right? Very, very qualified. And despite all of that, he's very humble devotee. Very sincere. And I'm fortunate to be having more of his association. Okay, please pray for me. No, wrong song. Jaya Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 7th canto. 7th canto. There's 9 chapters of the 7th canto that pertain to pastimes of Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu. So, I thought this evening we would focus on chapter 6 and perhaps speak on verse 1. But we'll speak a little bit of a summary, and then we'll commence with the specific verse. But before we recite Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, we should first of all offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayanishi, the Supremest Human Being, and unto the Goddess of Learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto the author, Srila Vyasadeva. If you know the verse, you can chant along with me. Narayanam namaskritya Jaya narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Srinvatha Svakatha Krishna Punya Shavanam Kirtanam Vidyantos Vyapatrani Vigunos Insarit Satam. Krishna, who is the super soul in the heart of the living entity and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed an urge to hear his message, which is virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta preshu avidreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavate tumashloke bhaktir bhavati mahishtaki. By regular hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes completely destroyed, almost to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is glorified with transcendental prayers, is established as an irrevocable fact. Krishna Spadam Opagate Dharma Gyan Dvisaha Lodrisham Drishamesha Purana Kodinodita. This Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, is as brilliant as the sun, and has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by knowledge, religion, etc. And persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So yesterday we gave a summary of the first chapter to the 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, leading up to the pastimes of, it's all part of the pastimes of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. First chapter talks about how the Lord is equal to everyone, which was very perplexing to Maharaj Yudhisthira. How is it that he's equal to everyone? That was a question that he asked. And then the pastime was related to how the two gatekeepers. I'm doing a summary because I'm sure everybody here knows the pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj. And then the next, then it was narrated that how Jaya and Vijay, how they became fallen, and they became these two demons, actually 6 demons in three lifetimes. In Krishna Lila, it was Jarasandha and Dantravaka. Right? We know a little bit about Jarasandha, but we don't know much about Dantravakra. There's one pastime where Krishna killed Dantravakra, but there's not a lot of information. And I don't know, maybe one of you other scholars, such as Baladev Prabhu, maybe he knows which one was Jaya and which one was Jai. Any luck on that one? Who was Vijay and who was Jai in the pastime with Krishna, Jarasandha, and Dantravakra? I'm thinking Jai was.
Shishupal or Jarasandha?
I mean, that's what I mean, Shishupal. I'm just testing you. I knew that. I was seeing if you're listening. And then the first one, of course, was Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Yeah. So Hiranyakashipu, he didn't accept the fact that Krishna and God is equal to everyone. He's favoring the devotees. But he's not favoring the demons. In other words, he's favoring my stepbrothers, the sons of Diti, but he's not favoring me and my other brothers, the sons of Aditi. So he's showing favoritism. Especially after, then what comes up next is that Hiranyaksha is killed by Lord Vraha. And Hiranyakashipu becomes very infuriated, very, very angry. He becomes mad. His brother was killed, and he becomes very antagonistic and angry towards Lord Vishnu. Anything related to Lord Vishnu is his avowed enemy. Actually, anger makes one lose their intelligence. Right? Even the Bhagavad Gita, it's pointed out that when one contemplates the object of the senses, then he develops attachment. From attachment comes lust. You become attached to something, and then you want to enjoy it. It becomes lust, and then from lust comes anger. Anger. And what happens when one becomes anger? Then he loses his intelligence. And he ends up again falling into the material world, the whirlpool of material existence. Therefore, controlling anger, one who can control anger, actually one who can control 6 things. Anybody know that verse from the Nectar of Instruction? Vakcha Vegam, Manasukrota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uddara Pasta Vegam, Etan Vegam, Yo Visheta Dira, Sarvam Apimam, Prithivi Sashat. That a person who is able to control the urges, 6 urges, the urges of the tongue to speak. Sometimes we have a tendency, especially me, just to speak some prajalpa, some nonsense. Control the tongue to speak. Control the demands of the mind. That's a tough one. Bhaktisiddhanta said we should control our mind by every morning when we wake up, beat it with a shoe. And then every night before we go to bed, beat it with a broomstick. In other words, try not to listen to the mind. If the mind is your best friend and is engaging you in Krishna consciousness, then that is certainly, definitely listen to your mind. But more often than not, because the mind is the seat of the senses, and especially in Kali Yuga, all around us, there's so many obstacles and so many things of temptation for the senses. And especially now, with the advent of the modern, advancement, rapid movement and advancement of technology, the internet, it's all pervasive. You got everything right in your hands, and the phone is there, and it's so readily available. You go to the grocery store, you go to the checkout stand, and there's all this nonsense literature. The eyes are attracted, the ears are attracted to different sounds, all this, and so the mind, being the seat of the senses, is being pulled in all these different directions. So controlling the mind is very, very difficult. And therefore, as Krishna points out in the Bhagavad Gita, that one whose mind is uncontrolled is basically a crazy person, but the mind is his worst enemy. And one who can control the mind becomes his best friend. But that's not such an easy thing to do. But someone who's able to control the demands of the mind, the actions of anger, and the pullings of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals, is said to be qualified to be spiritual master of the whole world. And if one finds such a person, one should take shelter of that person and serve them. Just as the verse we quoted from the Bhagavatam at the beginning, as Nityam Seva Nasta Preshu Avitreshu Nityam Bhagavat Seva Bhagavat Tirthamashle, that by regular hearing and rendering service to such a personality, then all that is troublesome within the heart becomes completely destroyed. Easier said than done. Or, where do we find such a personality? Right? Where do we find such a personality? And the tendency is that we, even though such a personality may be right in front of our midst, right in our midst, due to our imperfect senses, due to the obstacles, due to the imperfect senses and the fact that we're in illusion, and the fact we make mistakes and a cheating tendency, we may not recognize such a personality. We may not recognize such a personality. Even His Divine Grace, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, a pure devotee, prophesies to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world and to stop to turn around the crash course that the world is on, prophesies to do so, as Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Still, people would not see him as a saintly person. Many people would not see him as a saintly person. So we have to learn, who is a saintly person. So one such saintly person was Prahlad Maharaj. Even though, this is an amazing thing, even though he was born the son of a demon, he was a pure Vaishnava. And his father was very influential. His father was the most influential person in the entire universe. And Prahlad was sent to, we were making this point yesterday, he was sent to, the Ivy League topmost education available at the time. Someone who's privileged, someone who's very privileged, they get the best education. They go to the Ivy League university. So to speak, if your father is the most powerful person in the universe, obviously his son, who he was very affectionate towards initially, would make sure he would get the best education. So Prahlad was going to the best institution for education. He had the best teachers, Sananda and Mark, the two sons of Shukracharya. Shukracharya was he's an Acharya. Acharya, of course, of the demons, but from the perspective of the demons, he's the topmost Acharya. Just like in today's world, one great Acharya from the mundane point of view just recently passed away, Stephen Hawking. To the materialists, he's an Acharya. He's the authority. He's the best. And if you get, trained by him from their perspective, you're getting the best education. And similarly, we have, all the Ivy League universities like Harvard and Oxford, and the list goes on and on and on. But as Prabhupada pointed out, he doesn't see any institution where the most important subject matter, the subject matter of the devotees, is being taught. It's only the subject matter of the demons. So Prahlad, he had a very prestigious upbringing, obviously, at least until he started to rebel. He became a rebellious student. Teachers didn't know what to do with him. They pointed it out to his father. So his father asked him, "So what are you learning in school?" That was a common thing with my upbringing. I think I mentioned this before. Traditional life in Canada when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s until I became a teenager. Traditional life was you go to school, your mother would stay home, make lunch, dinner, we'd come home for dinner, father would come home from work, we'd sit around the dinner table, and then the first question the father would ask was, "What did you learn in school today?" And the answer was always the same, "Nothing." So when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad the same question, "What did you learn in school today?" or "What did you learn from your teachers?" Prahlad replied, "I learned that the ultimate occupational activity that one can perform Savai Pumso Paro Dharmo Yakto Bhaktirado Sijai. For Haituki Apariyatya Yayat Masu Prasiddhati Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, verse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Second chapter, first canto. Yeah. I was thinking second chapter, but initially I said second canto, but then I think I corrected it. Anyway, the supreme occupation is that by which one can attain loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, and such devotional service, we're all developing loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. We're going through the process. That's why we're here. But in order to completely satisfy the self, it has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. But even if it's motivated, there's no loss. It may slow us down a little bit, but there's no loss. Because just as Dhruva Maharaj was completely motivated, he engaged in devotional service, and eventually his motivation goes away. The motivation will go away if we engage in devotional service. That's a natural consequence. Param Jistar Nivartante. By experiencing a higher taste, then that which we thought was important becomes less important. We also used this example yesterday in regard to the analogy of eating. A hungry man eating. 3 things happen when a hungry man eats. This is from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. 3 things happen. First, he becomes satisfied. Enjoyment, especially if he's eating Krishna Prasadam. He becomes satisfied, isn't it? You have a program, you have a festival, you have a Sunday feast, and people will come. They come for the kirtan, get a few. You come for class, depending on the order. You might get a few more, you might get a few less, but when it comes to prasadam, everybody comes because they get satisfied and they get nourishment. And they become detached from eating because the hunger goes away. So in the same way, when one engages in devotional service, 3 things happen simultaneously. One becomes happy, satisfied. One develops direct experience, and becomes detached from other things. Savai Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Parojita. That one who engages in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, then automatically, very quickly, the word in its use is very quickly, one develops causeless knowledge and detachment for the mundane. We can be detached from something, but at the same time be engaged in the process. In other words, as householders, we perform our duty, but we're detached from the result. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna points out that the real yogi is one who engages in his duty as he's obligated, but He's detached from the results. Being detached is not something we can do artificially, but if we're engaging in devotional service, we're engaged in our proper varna, in our ashram, according to our varna ashram, and our proper duty, but we remain detached from the result, then that's actually the real sannyasi, the real yogi. Not someone that doesn't do anything, wears no clothes. Sometimes you have these, and that's referring mostly to the impersonalists. They may be in the, they may go around and do nothing and even go naked. Prabhupada compares them to sometimes the monkeys. The monkeys, they don't light any fires. That's the term that's used. They don't light any fires. The monkeys don't light any fires. They go around naked, but still they have their she-monkeys, whatever she-monkey is called. So not that kind of renunciation. Yukta Vairagya, as Rupa Goswami calls it, Yukta Vairagya, engaging what we have in Krishna's service is real renunciation. And doing our duty, being detached from the result, that's real renunciation. We can't, if we look, we cannot renounce something that we don't own. And if we really analyze things, we don't really own anything. We claim ownership due to ignorance, but we don't really own anything. We may claim to own some property, but the property's there before we owned it, and the property will be there after we're gone. So who's the real owner? We may temporarily claim ownership, but we don't actually own it. Or we may, claim to own, some item, but the things that are created, the thing that item is made from, is coming from natural resources. We can't make things grow. We can put a seed in the ground and water it, but then it's up to divinity whether it grows or not. And where does the seed? We cannot produce a seed that can grow. We can only use a seed that comes from another seed, that comes from another plant. We cannot create a seed. So whatever is coming out of the ground, trees or whatever, that we may take to use to build something, we can't claim the ownership. Just like a contractor, he builds a big skyscraper building, and then he turns around and says, now it belongs to me. But no, it doesn't belong to the contractor. It belongs to the financier, the one who provides the materials. So who's providing all the materials? God, Krishna. He's providing everything. It's beyond our control. The metal that comes out of the ground, the sand. One time Prabhupada was on a morning walk and he was speaking with one big industrialist. And he was a very proud industrialist, very, very wealthy. And so Prabhupada says, oh, what is your business? He said, I make glass. That was back in the day when glass was more prominent than plastic. Glass jars, glass cups, now it's plastic, everything. Anyway, so Prabhupada says, oh, and how do you make glass? He said, oh, from sand. He said, where do you get the sand? He said, we just take it out of the ground. He said, but where does the sand come from? And then he accused the man of he's a thief. You're a thief. You're claiming that you own it, but you're actually stealing. You're actually claiming it as yours. And the man understood, and he actually appreciated it. And of course, he laughed. They both laughed together. So we can't claim to own anything. So if we don't own anything, then it's easier, and we actually realize then it's easier to be detached from it. Do we own this body? Where does the body come from? It comes from the parents. So maybe the parents should be, they claim ownership of the body. When we're young, where the parents take care of us, my baby, my child, my son, my daughter, and then you get a little older, and then you're in school, and then a teacher claims ownership, my students. So you're under the control and ownership of the teacher. And then you get a little older, and then the government claims you get a social insurance number, and then your country goes to war, and then the next thing you know, you're drafted to go to the war. So now the government, the army, is claiming ownership. So who's the actual owner? I'm the owner. My body. Right? That's what we really. It's my body. I can do what I want with it. It's like Sanatana Goswami, follower of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He developed a very decrepit disease. He was walking through the forest and he drank some contaminated water. And when he drank the water, his body became all broke out in all kinds of sores, very, very diseased. And he met with Lord Chaitanya. And then his plan was he was going to liberate himself. He was going to give up his body by throwing it underneath the Rath Yatra cart, during Rath Yatra. Word came to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya told him, he said, you can't do that. That body does not belong to you now, it belongs to me. Right? Because he became his disciple. And I have many more plans for you. So in the same way, when we take to the process of Krishna consciousness, this body actually no longer really belongs to us. It actually belongs to Krishna. Or you could even, be so bold as to say, the spiritual master. Therefore, when Prabhupada, for the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes, and he gives credit to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that the order of the spiritual master is my life and soul. And that really, when Prabhupada heard that, really, resonated. So much so that when he himself got the instruction from his spiritual master to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world, he took it so deeply to heart that that's what he focused on. And what was the result? He spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Even though he had godbrothers that were, Prabhupada himself said, I'm not a scholar, neither am I a scholar. I'm just an insignificant, disciple of my spiritual master. He says, if there's any success, my only success is that I strictly tried. He didn't even say followed. He said, strictly tried to follow the order of my spiritual master. I'm very guilty of not following. Or the third offense is the chanting of the holy name, to disobey the order of the spiritual master. Therefore, a wise spiritual master, he doesn't do very much ordering. He makes a lot of suggestions that's in our best interest, because he wants to make sure that we don't offend make an offense to the holy name by disobeying the order of the spiritual master. So, when Hiranyakashipu asked his son, what did you learn from your teachers? Then he also said that I learned what the ultimate objective is, and then he gave the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarnam, Hara, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, the 9 processes of devotional service. To Vishnu. As soon as Hiranyakashipu heard that, he was very annoyed. He called in the teachers. He said, "Where did my son learn this?" And Mark and Sananda said, "We're not teaching him. I have no idea. Maybe some other student or somebody infiltrated the class and was teaching him." And so Hiranyakashipu ordered them, "You find that person." And they couldn't find anybody. And then later, Prahlad Maharaj started to teach his classmates. he started to teach his classmates. And the first thing he told to them, it's a very important verse. Prabhupada quoted this verse many times. Komaram Archana Prajno Narman Bhagavatam Iha Durlabham Manusam Janma Tad Apya Durvam Tadam. Prahlad Maharaj told his classmates, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, Komaram Archana Prajna, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary, like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life, one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. Anybody think of an example of someone who engaged in some devotional service and then gave it up but still attained perfection? From the Bhagavatam. He engaged in some devotional service and then he kind of went astray. Ajamil, yes. That's a perfect example. Even a little bit of sincere devotional service. And the next question is, are we sincere? Anybody that's, practicing Krishna consciousness on a regular basis has to be sincere. Even if it's materially motivated, still there's some sincerity. You're sincere even though it's materially motivated. Right? What are the four aspects of motivated devotional service? People that can take the devotional service that are motivated? Yes. Yeah. One who is in need, someone who is desperate, someone who's inquisitive, and someone who's looking for the absolute knowledge. But they have to have some pious credit. Or they have to have the causeless mercy of a pure devotee. So, and we have examples of someone who was in need, and they performed devotional service, and they were in want, and they gave up that want, and that of course is Dhruva Maharaj. Right? He had such a big want. He engaged in devotional service, and then he became free of it because he was sincere in his effort, even though the effort was initially for something else. He attained all perfection because he was sincere in his effort. Was it the Kumaras who were in search of knowledge? And they achieved success by that search for knowledge. Anyway, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there's many examples of devotees who, because of their sincere efforts, despite the fact that they were engaged in devotional service for something else, they achieved success. Akama sarvakamava, moksha kama udaraditi vrena bhakti. Akama, if someone has no material desires, or sarva, he has all material desires, or moksha kama, even desires liberation, if he's intelligent, he will take to the process of devotional service, serving Krishna. Devotional service is the only means to make someone happy, to make us happy. There's nothing else that will make us happy, because devotional service is the constitution of the living entity. Jivar Swarup Krishna Nityadas. That's our constitution. And if we don't do what our constitution is, we'll never be satisfied. And the example is, we gave this last night. If you take 2 ice cubes and you rub them together, you're more likely to get fire by rubbing those two ice cubes together than you are to get happiness without devotional service to Krishna. Or you have a pet tortoise and you take a comb and you want to comb the hair on the back of the tortoise. It's not going to happen. There's no hair on the shell of the tortoise. But you're more likely to get hair on and comb the hair on the back of a tortoise than you are to get happiness without engaging in devotional service. And we all experience that, isn't it? We all experience it. When we engage in devotional service, whether it's a little bit or a lot, it's like we feel a sense of satisfaction. So, going back to the verse from the second canto, if we engage in devotional service that's continuous, then we're continuously happy. That the problem is, and I'm speaking for myself, maintaining continuous devotional service, sometimes what happens, and we tend to, fall a little bit to the side. And usually there's four things that has been analyzed by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. It's actually very brilliant. He was a scholar at Princeton University before he was a devotee, and a very highly respected devotee within the movement. And he pointed out that there were four things that we have a tendency to move away from, that uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service, and that is not associating with devotees. Or pride. And pride is there. One of the traps of pride is being a devotee. You become proud. Yes, we should be proud that we're devotees of Krishna, but we should not be proud thinking that I'm a great devotee. But we should be proud of the fact that we're devotees. And personally, I have so much pride. Remember when I was a new bhakta, new devotee, everybody, we had a really nice Gurukul in Vancouver at the time. And as a new devotee, and it was established Gurukul, and you had these 5-year-old boys and girls, and I would look at them and think, my God, they're so advanced. And in my mind, I would be offering my obeisances to them. And then every devotee, anybody was like, oh, they're so advanced. And then after a while, you're around for a while, and then you start to get a little familiar. And then if you're around for a long time, then you start to think, yeah, I'm such a great devotee, been around a long time. People should show me respect. I did this, I did that, I did this. Those are big faults. That's what I am struggling with, because I've been around a long time. Yeah, I'm such a great devotee. You should all bow down to me. I'm only kidding, of course. But pride, that's another big stumbling block. Not associating with devotees. The other one is, which seems a bit of a paradox, the other one is finding fault with devotees. And that is so easy to do. So easy to do. So the way we avoid finding fault is, well, if I'm going to find fault with devotees, and it's very dangerous, it's considered the mad elephant offense, which will completely destroy a devotional creeper, then the best thing I can do is avoid associating with devotees, then I won't find fault with them. Right? But it's a paradox, because you have to associate with devotees. If you don't associate with devotees, you're going to not advance. And if you do associate with devotees, there's a tendency to find fault. I'm not going to get into analyzing about how to overcome finding faults. There's volumes and volumes. There's many examples. The Lord Chaitanya and the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, about how devotees became fallen, how devotees were not getting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Even Lord Chaitanya's own mother, Sachi. One day Lord Chaitanya, I may have said this last time, he was giving blessings. He was giving blessings to everybody. He was in a very blessing mood. It started with one devotee came up to him and he said, my dear Lord, can you please change the heart of my father, because life at home is very difficult because he's so antagonistic and so against devotional service. If you can change his heart, then, I can advance nicely. Lord Chaitanya said, done, no problem. And then someone else came up to him and said, can you please remove material desires from my heart? Lord Chaitanya, no problem, done. He walked away, no more material desires. We don't become desireless. We become desired to serve Krishna. That is what love is not something for yourself, but something for the beloved. Otherwise, it's not love. It's basically, they use the term lust. It's selfish interest. That's why there's so much divorce. So-called love is selfish interest, and when that selfish interest is no longer supported, then it turns into divorce. So then someone suggested, can you give a blessing, give a benediction to your mother Sachi? Lord Chaitanya said, no, I can't do that. What? You can't? Your own mother? Your own mother that nurtured you, that took care of you, you can't give her a blessing? He said, no, I can't do that. I said, why is that? He said, because Mother Sachi had offended Advaita Acharya. And he said, is there any hope for her? Lord Chaitanya said, yes. If she goes to Advaita Acharya and offers her forgiveness, asks for forgiveness, and Advaita Acharya gives her forgiveness, then I can bless her. So this was related to Mother Sachi, and which she did before she got blessed. Of course, to be the mother of Lord Chaitanya. Mother Sachi in previous life, previous birth, Krishna Lila, was Mother Sachi? Yashoda? Yeah, and Devaki. Yeah, just like Krishna, the Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna, Devaki, Mother Sachi is Yashoda and Krishna Lila and Devaki combined. And Nanda Maharaj, Lord Chaitanya's father, is not Nanda Maharaj. Who's his father? Jagannath Mishra. Sorry, Jagannath Mishra. I'm thinking Krishna Lila speaking Chaitanya Lila. Yeah, Jagannath Mishra, he's both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva combined. Anyway, so she's already blessed. But in order to make a point, what had happened was Lord Chaitanya had an older brother by the name of, thank you. These names are not coming very quickly to me tonight. It's good I have scholars here. Yeah, Vishwarup. And Vishwarup took sannyas, went away, and it was very devastating to Sachi and to Jagannath Mishra. So Lord Chaitanya said, he promised, not to worry, I'll stay home, we'll get married, like that. So they were somewhat pacified. But Vishwarupa went to school under Advaita Acharya. And Mother Sachi always kind of blamed Advaita Acharya for her son taking sannyas, because he was teaching spiritual knowledge, and just as Narada Muni had taught all the Haryashvas to, the 10,000 sons of Daksha, don't get involved with household life, stay brahmachari, go back to Godhead. He was so powerful a preacher, and they took it to heart, so they didn't, and this upset Daksha. So in the same way, Mother Sachi was a little upset with Advaita Acharya. So then later, when Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas, and they all met at the house of Advaita Acharya, Mother Sachi came to cook for Lord Chaitanya. There she made the offense. She accused him, in a very assaulting verbal manner of making my dear Nimai take sannyas. And therefore, she made a great offense. And because of that offense, Lord Chaitanya would not give her own mother the blessing. So making offenses to devotees is very, 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 very dangerous. And what happens is that we have a tendency, we go away and we have a tendency to think, yeah, but it's, it's them, it's not me. But we're the pilot of our own plane. We're the pilot of our own plane. And I want to make a comment right now. When I'm speaking like this, I'm not speaking, necessarily speaking to you. I'm speaking to myself. I'm trying to, convince myself, preach to myself that this is how I should act. And it's not, it's not like I'm perfect in any means, not far from it. But somehow or other, Krishna is allowing me to speak, and I'm trying to embrace it so I can follow myself. Anyway, so Lord Chaitanya, eventually, because Mother Sachi did go and ask for forgiveness, Lord Chaitanya, gave her the blessing. And of course, there's the classic example in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we all know, the example in the pastime with, where a devotee was offended, and the only way that a person was offended, a devotee was offended, and the only rectification was if that person, that offender, would go back and beg forgiveness from the offended devotee. Yes, Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was a very powerful Muni. He was so powerful, he was the one that gave Radharani the benediction that she could cook every day for Krishna, and everything would always taste good, and she would never repeat the same preparation. He was the one that gave Queen Kunti the benediction that she could summon any demigod that she wanted, and that's how Karna was born. And that benediction came from Durvasa Muni. And the way she got the benediction, because Durvasa Muni was a little bit of an agitated person, easily disturbed, easily agitated. And Kunti Boj, Kunti's father, he knew this, so he warned Queen Kunti, you had to be very, very careful not to disturb him. Just like he was disturbed by the fact that Durvasa Muni, Ambarish, to break his fast, he took a little bit of Charnamrita, which is breaking fast and not breaking fast. But on that plea, he took offense and became annoyed. He was very easily annoyed. But Kunti was so meticulous and so conscientious of whatever needs Durvasa Muni had when he visited, that he was completely satisfied by her, and therefore he gave her that benediction. Of course, that came after the pastime with Ambarish. But the point is that he had that potency being very, very powerful. Which also points out that a devotee is more powerful than a yogi, because Durvasa Muni is an incredibly powerful yogi. And Ambarish, in fact, he was a Brahmin yogi. And the Brahmins, they have Brahma Tejas. Just like King Benu, when he was such a poor ruler, the Brahmins, just by their Brahman Tejas, they removed him. Chanted a few mantras, bye-bye. Because the genuine Brahmins have more power than the powerful Kshatriyas, more power than the Vaishnavas have even more power than a mere Brahmana. So, and where does the power come from? It comes from Krishna. As Prahlad Maharaj pointed out to his father, when his father said, "Where are you getting your power?" And his father said, Prahlad said, "I'm getting it from the same place you are, from the Supreme Personality of Godhead," which only infuriated Hiranyakashipu even further, to the point where, of course, that was the beginning of his end. That was when he was about to kill Prahlad, and Narasimha appeared and made small order of him. So I'll read this verse again. Prahlad is instructing his student, his fellow students, 5-year-old boy. Prahlad Maharaj said, "One who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary, like other bodies, it is meaningful, Because in human life, one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. I know everyone in this room is engaged in, or has engaged in, or is going to engage in sincere devotional service. You wouldn't be here if you weren't sincere. You wouldn't be chanting Hare Krishna if you weren't sincere. Anybody that spends a year engaged in devotional service has to be sincere. Anyone engages 6 months, anyone engages even for a few days, there has to be some sincerity there. Even though it may be motivated, the sincerity has to be there. Of course, real sincerity means, Anya Vilasita Sunyam Gyanam Karma Navitam Anukalena Krishna Doshivanam Bhaktutam. Completely free from any karma or any speculation, favorable just to please Krishna. That is that's real sincerity, that's pure devotional service. But any devotional service that one spends some time, their valuable time, to engage in, then that has to be sincere. Am I mistaken? What do you think? Baldev Prabhu, what do you think? Prabhupada said, especially in the early days, all the young Western, they didn't really know very much, coming from a rebellious background, many of them, going against the traditional materialistic values, just as Prahlad was doing. Sometimes they would come and they would show so much enthusiasm, they'd stay for a few days, and then they would leave, never to be seen again. And this would upset the devotees, and Prabhupada pointed out, even if they come and engage in just a little bit of devotional service, what's the loss? Someone who comes and engages even a little devotional service is far better off than someone who hasn't engaged in any devotional service, even though materially speaking, he's reached perfection. Because that material perfection will not endure, whereas even a little devotional service will endure eternally. Okay. Prahlad Maharaj ki.
Jaya.
Srila Bhagavan ki.
Jaya.
All of you ki. Big Jaya. Hare Krishna.